Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to our chapter-by-chapter read-through of Frank Herbert's masterpiece, Dune. Uh, Started off with Dune in June, a BookTube event, but we've now gone past June, so we're just going to keep reading Dune. This is the story of a swap of households in a far future science fiction imperium. The House Harkonnen has been told to abandon the planet Arrakis, Dune, and the House Atreides has been told to take it up. But this doesn't make any sense to Duke Leto Atreides, who knows that it's a trap. Well, now the trap has sprung successfully. The Duke has been drugged and captured, taken by the Harkonnens. He has been betrayed by his doctor, Dr. Yua. And we can assume, we haven't seen it yet, but we can assume that catastrophe is falling on all the rest of the Atreides. The two Atreides we're most concerned with are the Duke's woman, the Lady Jessica, an adept of the mystical all-female society of the Bene Gesserit, and her son, the Duke's heir, young Paul Atreides. And we find, in the chapter that we're reading today, we learn their fates. They have both been drugged and incapacitated, been bound, and Jessica has been gagged to guard against her skill at a Bene Gesserit ability called the Voice, with a capital V, where the Bene Gesserit gains a register of the person through their gestures, their vocal mannerisms, the timbre of their voice. They gain a register of that person that allows a kind of vocal hypnosis, vocal command over that person. It's extremely dangerous, as the Lady Jessica demonstrates it to Thufir Hawat, Duke Leto's master assassin, and he's stunned that anyone could have this ability, that anyone could develop this ability to disable, to countermand another person through merely the control of their own voice. That's why Jessica is gagged. As the chapter opens with her as a captive item before Baron Harkonnen, who is Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, is the architect of the downfall of House Atreides. Jessica doesn't know anything. She was drugged in the dark in her bedroom. She doesn't know anything about what's happening. She doesn't know what's happening to her Duke. No idea what's happening to any of her assailants or any of her household or whatnot. But we know, we have been told, and Jessica also knows because she found a secret note that warned her about some of the details. We know that she has been promised as a gift to Baron Harkonnen's twisted killer mentat, Peter. And that is the scene that we open up on here. Jessica regains consciousness, bound and gagged, in a room with Baron Harkonnen and Peter, the twisted mentat, who she sees right away is an animal, a debased creature, and a killer. She doesn't have any idea in this scene. She doesn't have any idea why the Baron doesn't hear it, why he doesn't protect himself. This thing is obviously a danger to everyone around it. And Peter reminds the Baron of their deal. I will create this grand plan for you. I will orchestrate the downfall of House Atreides, and you will give me this woman as a plaything. The Baron is willing to agree to this, but he has a counter-proposal for Peter, which is, I will give you the duchy of Arrakis itself. I will make you a power, a real-world power. As opposed to you taking the woman and running for the frontier, I'll make you a power in exchange for this woman. So you don't get this one person, but you get a whole duchy to play with as you please. And Peter takes the duchy. And that's just as well, because the Baron doesn't want Jessica alive. He doesn't want her to live, and he doesn't want her son to live either. He has a plan for them, which is for henchmen to take them out into the desert and leave them to the mercy of the sandworms, the giant sandworms that patrol the deserts of Dune, or the flesh-stripping storms that routinely show up out in the desert. He wants his henchmen, one of whom is deaf, so he's not vulnerable to the voice. He wants his henchmen to take them out into the desert and leave them, kill them. And thanks to Peter's choice, he gets to do that. They get escorted out of the room. They get carried out of the room. Jessica sees that Paul is alive. He also is bound. He's not gagged, but he's bound. And they are brought to an ornithopter, an aircraft in this book, in this universe, and loaded on it to be taken past the shield wall and brought out into the desert. Jessica notices right away, it's desperate, of course. Their survival hangs by a thread. But she notices right away that someone has mucked around with the ornithopter in a way that the men don't know. There's an Atreides call sign sketched on the ceiling of the ornithopter. The men aren't noticing it, but she's on a pallet. She's looking up and seeing it. And the strap of her seat has been artificially loosened. And there's a package of some kind underneath the pilot's seat. It all looks like they were meant to have this ornithopter. If they can escape. If they can use their wiles to escape. And they do. They do. Paul is not gagged. But he has been trained in Bene Gesserit ways by his mother. He has more or less a mastery of the voice. It's not as great as Jessica's mastery, but it's enough so that when one of the men is near to Jessica's face and Paul says, take off her gag, the man does. Just reflexively does. And that allows Jessica to stand basically a spell over all the men in the room, including she, at one moment in the scene, we're told that she makes sure that the deaf man can see her lips. So is there a non-sonic version of the voice? Is he not proof against it anyway? Either way, she creates havoc. She gets them fighting amongst themselves, which is she and Paul's only hope, is to get them fighting amongst themselves, and she does. Paul has to finish one of them off himself, but even bound, he's able to do that because she's also been training him physically. And they manage to free themselves, and Jessica manages to discover that someone has mucked around with this ornithopter. Someone has left a sign for them, if they should manage to survive, that there is stuff here for them. That box underneath the pilot seat contains stuff for them. So she grabs it, and they are no sooner... They're on the sand. The crew that sent them out there is dead. Of course, Jessica correctly intuits that the Baron would have killed them anyway when they came back and said, mission successful, he'd have had them killed. He didn't want any witnesses. They're on the sand outside this ornithopter when suddenly at the end of the chapter they hear other ornithopters and they know they're being hunted by the Harkonnens. It ends with in a very pulpy kind of run type way. But the chapter does two things simultaneously. One is that it's further working into our minds that the good guys have lost, and they've lost it all. They've lost it all. They haven't had an assault at their front gates. They've been beaten. Too formidable an adversary. But also it gives us hope, because Jessica and Paul are still alive. And they're out in the desert. So we are now launched into a full adventure, but their adventure story. But we have to learn more about what happens to House Atreides, and we do. So that's coming up. So we'll finish with this chapter now, and we will move on. So I will see you next time. Thank you, BookTube.